All right, good afternoon. I'm joined here today by Minister Chris Hipkins, our Minister for Police, and Minister Priyanka Radhakrishnan, who's our Minister for Social Cohesion and Inclusion and Ethnic Communities. I'll give you a brief overview of some of the activity that we've been undertaking today and then cast forward a little bit to some of the work that we'll be doing over the coming weeks. This morning I had the opportunity to speak with the family of the dairy worker who horrifically lost their life this week. I will continue to take my steer from the family as to what kind of conversations and communication that they would like to have in this horrific period of mourning and grief for them. Also had the opportunity to meet this afternoon with representatives from the Sandringham Business Association and those directly affected by what has happened here this week, but also over the past 12 months. This is going to help us make sure that in any future decision making around the work that we do to try and prevent this kind of activity, that we're shaping our programs to best meet those needs. We've also had an opportunity to meet with the police and get the latest updates from them. I do want to acknowledge the work that they have done over the past 72 hours to so quickly have an arrest and an alleged offender before the courts and being held to account. Of course, that will bring some relief, of course, but it will not, of course, take away the grief that the family are feeling at this time, and that is who ultimately I know we are all very mindful of and continue to be focused on. We're happy to take your questions.
Prime Minister, why aren't you at the Rose Cottage Superette today?
Most important thing for us today was to meet with those affected in the Sandringham wider community, particularly Sandringham businesses, for me to be able to speak to a grieving family and to understand whatever needs they may have. I take my steer from them, and I also take some future steps from them around what more we can continue to do to try and prevent these kinds of horrific events from occurring.
When will you be going?
Well, of course, those individuals who work and are associated with the dairy are the ones that, for me, are the focus, not just the physical space. I've reached out to the owner and I've spoken to the family. They, for me, are the focus.
I want to ask about the Retail Crime Prevention Program that's currently in place. The criteria for that only covers dairies, small businesses that are hit by ram raids. Will you be reassessing the criteria for that?
I'll give you a little bit of context and then I might hand over to the Minister as well. But the short answer is yes. Longer form, there was a spate of aggravated burglaries, particularly involving small businesses, around 2016. The Fog Cannon initiative started at that point but had quite narrow criteria and required those businesses to pay quite a hefty contribution to the installation of a fog cannon. When we came in 2018, we substantially expanded and loosened the criteria, and that's how we came to have 1,000 fog cannons installed. In more recent times, however, it's been ram raids that have been a considerable focus, and that's where the second iteration of funding around preventative measures were focused. So you can see that we've had changes and where we've seen those spikes and those funds have changed as a result. But we have, in talking to the community and hearing some of their experiences, we are of the view that we do need to go back and look at additional changes to some of the work that we've already been putting in place.
Minister, I do have a question for you. I
Sure.
know you asked for a please explain as to why the Rose Cottage Superette didn't get the fog cannons that they applied for. Any update on that?
Yeah, look, the Prime Minister's just alluded to the different nature of the funds, and we're still working our way through that with the police. And I don't want to get ahead of that, but I think the Prime Minister's outlined that there are different funds at play here. There have been a different timeline of events, and also I'm also just a bit reluctant to get into the details of a particular incident and the background to the particular incident when that matter is now before the courts as well. So just being a bit cautious there.
And Prime Minister, is there any support, for the Sandringham community at the moment, your electorate of Mount Albert?
Yes. Well, I've just been talking to representatives from the Sandringham Business Association, and yes, I do think that there are additional things that we can do, and that will take a coming together of both council and helpfully we did have members of the local board there who are very connected as well to the business association, and we talk through some of the additional things that may make a difference. So working with council, insurers also, landlords and government are coming together of all of those groups to make sure we're doing everything we can. Some cases, of course, government can make available funding, but if there's been a ram raid, of course, insurers need to come to the party to make sure that shop frontages are fixed. Then that you're able to come in and put in place with contractors whatever may be useful, bollards, screen doors, fog cannons, having those contractors come in quickly, having council then identify, for instance, whether extra lighting or CCTV cameras will also make a difference. There's a number of parties we need to bring together as quickly as possible to make sure that we're supporting our local businesses.
Is the cost of living crisis pushing up these robberies?
We have seen a particular spate of ram raids in particular, and according to police, they see a number of reasons why they've seen that spike. It is coming away. In November, we had, I was advised a few days ago, a total of 13. That's down quite significantly from the peak that we had. Now, I'd put that down in large part to the police prosecutions around these events. As for the contributing factors, police have identified a range of things, including, for instance, the prevalence of young people sharing these acts on social media as being one of the contributing factors, but not the only one.
Have you spoken with police and discussed about how to prevent this from happening again?
We have. In fact, on the very day that this horrific event in Sandringham occurred, we had met with police, justice, and also Oranga Tamariki to talk about what more we could be doing to make sure that we were both preventing and intervening when we saw these events occurring. We will continually look at those possible options on Monday. Again, as Cabinet, we'll discuss what more can be done. But again, it has to be a mix of prevention, intervention and responsibility, prosecuting and holding to account those who are responsible.
Prime Minister, what do you make of plans for dairy workers and small business workers to protest following the funeral?
Look, I think the most important thing is that we as government and police and all those who have a role to play in protecting our community are able to talk directly with one another. And so we will be seeking next week the opportunity to do that. It is of any community group's prerogative if they choose to undertake that kind of activity to do so. But what we'll be seeking is the opportunity to hear face to face their concerns and again work together on what more we could be doing. One concern I have had raised is that there is a concern from members of the community around the fact that there have been particular groups that feel particularly vulnerable. No one in New Zealand wants to see that be the case. No one wants to see anyone feel like they're being targeted. We need to hear that and respond to it.
Minister, I have a question. You said that you have spoken to the family.
Correct.
Did you meet them in person?
No, that wasn't a possibility today for a whole range of reasons. And again, I'm very mindful of the fact that they have not yet been able to lay their loved one to rest. But I will be seeking the opportunity to meet with them face to face and to do that on their terms, on their timeline, but hopefully in the near future.
Have you managed to maintain any contact and offer any kind of support for the family? What kind of
again, I'll just caveat this with I'm mindful of protecting their privacy as well. I would describe the conversation as one full of sorrow.
And Prime Minister, I understand that this homicide has become a catalyst for a lot of dialogues. Why did it have to wait until such a mishap? Again,
what I would just reinforce is the very day this occurred, ministers were meeting together to look at what additional steps could be taken. As I've often said, we have presided over a government who has increased police resources, increased police numbers, overseen a national retail crime unit that we've put more resource in terms of preventative activity to support what they're doing. The sentences that apply, they have not lessened. For aggravated burglary, up to 14 years. For burglary, 10 years. The ability to put through a court a young person, all of that remains. We have been looking to add tools. We have not taken them away, and we've looked to continually ask ourselves, what more can we do? And as I say, we've been doing that for some time now.
Minister Hipkins, there's been a lot of chat about what the government should do. Has there been any conversations between yourself and dairy owners about what dairy owners can do? to protect themselves?
That's an ongoing conversation, and the police are certainly working very actively with the representatives of retailers, a whole variety of different representative groups who work with retailers, to have conversations with them about the sorts of things that they can do to keep themselves safe. A part of the assessment work that's undertaken when a business is the victim of any of this sort of offending is an assessment of that individual business, and they get advice from police about what they can do. Sometimes it's around store layout, security systems, all of those sorts of things. So even if they're not part of the Retail Crime Prevention Fund, they still, police on a daily basis are still giving businesses guidance and advice on the sorts of things that they can do to keep themselves safe.
Minister, do you think this country, or Prime Minister, do you think this country has a crime emergency?
We are absolutely experiencing a spike in particular criminal activity at present. That is clear. And for those that are facing it, it is horrific. It makes them feel vulnerable, it makes them feel targeted, and it makes them feel unsafe. No New Zealander wants them operating under those circumstances, and that's why we will continue to do all we can and partner as well with all those who have the ability to make a difference, but we also take responsibility for those levers that we have as government. I'll take a last couple of questions, yeah.
Journalists and staff have got into evidence before police detectives twice this week.
They have done, what have you done, sorry?
They've got into CCTV evidence twice before detectives this week, are journalists. What's your response to that?
Well, obviously, police have deployed every means available in order to make a successful arrest last evening. And I think everyone would acknowledge the hard work that has gone in from the police force in order to ensure an arrest as quickly as possible.
But is it acceptable that journalists are getting to evidence before the police?
Police have made an arrest. I think that's the most important point here.
Right.
Last one, perhaps.
A little bit different. National says Labor has made it so that if Free Borders becomes law, it would now need 60% support to then overturn it. Is this correct?
The entrenchment provisions that I believe went before Parliament from the Greens were around primarily the act of privatisation of assets, which I'm led to believe that all parties want to ensure that water assets remain in public ownership and settled on, and has always believed is the case. So if national support public ownership, I would have thought that they wouldn't have an issue with that.
Paul Goldsmith has said you've essentially pulled a fast one on everyone. Is that correct?
Around entrenchment? Again, here I would say if the National Party believes that water assets should be privatised, that's a matter for them. They should probably share that with the public. We absolutely do not. In fact, there are multiple provisions in these laws to try and protect water assets ever being privatised. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.